with others in warmly congratulating the Noble Lord Speller on his exemplary maiden speech. I have three short questions to the Noble Baroness, the Minister, before some remarks about North Korea. Firstly, can the Noble Baroness tell us what progress has been made in releasing funds to Ukraine from the £2.5 billion sale of Chelsea Football Club and the £783,000 recovered in the Peter Arden case? Secondly, an issue I raised with her on Monday, what prosecutions will be mounted against those United Kingdom insurers who cover the 12 sanction-busting liquefied natural gas tankers currently benefiting from UK protection and indemnity insurance? And thirdly, will we look at amending the legal limitations in sections 51 and 58 of the International Criminal Court Act of 2001, preventing the UK from prosecuting core international crimes and the role that universal jurisdiction might play in ensuring justice? During question time on Wednesday, I referred to Monday's meeting of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on North Korea, which I co-chair with Sir Ian Duncan-Smith. At that meeting, we discussed how 10 years ago, the United Nations Commission of Inquiry described North Korea as a country without parallel and guilty of crimes against humanity. The UN inquiry called for the leadership to be referred by the Security Council to the International Criminal Court for prosecution. My Lords, we have never tabled a resolution to do that, and the Noble Baroness, the Minister, kindly promised to reflect on that issue. The same North Korean regime has violated Security Council resolutions, developed weapons of mass destruction, and circumvented sanctions. Emboldened by this failure to hold it to account, it's now shipped at least 16,500 containers of munitions, perhaps as many as 4.8 million artillery shells, and scores of ballistic missiles to sustain Putin's war in Ukraine. Robert Kopche, the US Assistant Secretary of State, believes Russia has launched more than 65 missiles of North Korean origin at targets in Ukraine, and with Iran and China widening and escalating the existential war in Ukraine, this does, as others have rightly said, threaten three societies the world over. I visited North Korea. I saw grinding poverty, food shortage, stunted growth caused by malnutrition. Its dangerously provocative missile tests cost about $1 billion a year, around 4% of North Korea's economy, with at least 16% of government expenditure on its war machine, money which could have been used to feed its own people 10 times over. It constantly threatens its neighbours, with dictator Kim calling for an exponential increase of nuclear warheads, mass production of battlefield tactical nuclear weapons, and the development of more advanced intercontinental ballistic missiles designed to reach the US mainland. Now, as part of the Noble Lord Robertson of Port Ellen's deadly quartet, an axis of dictators, anything between 2,000 and 13,000 North Korean soldiers are being trained in eastern Russia for combat in Putin's war. My Lords, this is part of a global struggle. It is ultimately about dictatorship versus democracy, and we have been here before. During the Cold War, we saw security and our democratic values openly expressed and promoted in the Helsinki process as two sides of one coin, and exemplified by the leadership of Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher, with singular others, such as Václav Havel and Lech Wałęsa, John Paul II, understanding the enormity of the challenge, but the opportunity it presented too. That same earnest desire for freedom that brought down the Berlin Wall 35 years ago next month is there in North Korea too. Ask the more than 30,000 escapees, some of whom experienced the gulags in which 100,000 people are still held and characterized by torture, brutality and degradation. Ask the young soldier who in August risked his life to walk through a minefield to gain the freedom of democratic South Korea. Ask the family which last year managed to get out of North Korea in a small boat, and one of whom described how he had been forced to watch the execution of a 22-year-old caught listening to South Korean music, viewing bad movies. Or ask the North Korean teenagers sent to hard labour, caught looking at K-drama. Be clear, this is one of the most repressive and controlling states on earth, So we must reach over the heads of Putin and Kim before more young men are sent to their deaths, this time on the front line in Ukraine. By physical or cyber messaging, they must be told that they can walk to freedom across the front line in Ukraine with a route to a new life in Seoul, with citizenship guaranteed there under South Korea's constitution. And this isn't a flight of fancy. In 2016, Tae Yong-ho, Deputy North Korean Ambassador in London, walked out of the embassy with his family and never returned, and in due course he was elected to the South Korean National Assembly. He told me that his observation of our way of life had convinced him of the case for democracy rather than dictatorship. So in addition to boldly offering an alternative to totalitarianism, why aren't we using our place at the Security Council to assert our belief in the rule of law and demanding that the UN's own findings of crimes against humanity reaches the ICC or ICJ? If it's vetoed, we should create our own special court, as we did in 1945. The responsibility for crimes against humanity, WMD, and violations of UN Security Council resolutions, and now soldiers being sent to fight in Europe, resides with the Workers' Party of Korea and the singular authority of its supreme leader, Kim Jong-un, and they must be held to account and brought to justice.